Just examining my clearance lights, my four-ways, my signal lights, and my reflectors. Probably mounted and secured, and crack damage are loose, and they're all the proper color amber. My headlights, high beam and low beam, on both sides, Mr. Examiner. Probably mounted and secured, and crack damage are loose, and they're clean. Take a step back, look, Mr. Examiner, my truck is not leaning or leaking. It would be leaning if I had a tire problem or a suspension problem. Right? The rubber seal around my windshield. Probably mounted and secured, not one torn or frayed, and they're not missing. Alright? You guys can hang out there till I pop over your
I never get that.
Yo, you just blocked my whole camera. Get out the way.
Just examine the overview of my hoses. All my hoses are probably mounted and secured. There's no abrasions, there's no bulges, no cuts, and no leaks. The overview of all my wires is probably mounted and secured. Not worn, torn, or frayed. There's no exposed wires. My alternator is probably mounted and secured. Not cracked, damaged, or loose. It's belt driven. The wires behind my alternator are probably mounted and secured. Not worn, torn, or frayed. There's no exposed wires, and the wires are attached. Mr. Examiner, if I pull on my belt, it should be, if I screw it up, guys.
Don't worry about it.
I should have no more than a half-inch to 3/4 inch play on my belt. All right. Got that. Got that. All right.
Not one torn or frayed either.
Yep.
If on this truck, we don't say that.
No, that's your record.
So you don't say
No.
that. Oh,
Absolutely.
I seen it this morning. I was like, oh.
Yeah. All right. Just examine the overview of my wires. Probably mounted and secured, not one torn or frayed. There's no exposed wires. Overview of my hoses on this side is probably mounted and secured. No abrasions, bulges, or cuts. No leaks. My coolant reservoir with my cap is probably mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or loose. The fluid is between min and max, and my cap is on tight. My power steering reservoir with my cap is probably mounted and secured. Not cracked, damaged, or loose. My cap is not leaking, and the fluid is between min and max. Mr. Examiner, I can't see my power steering pump, but I know it's back there. It's probably mounted and secured, cracked, damaged, or loose, and not leaking. If he says to you, how do you know it's not leaking? I did my lips and lips. I have an answer for it. It leans. You have an answer for him, he can't say none after that. Mr. Examiner, my compressor is back there. Can't see it. Probably mounted and secured. Not cracked, damaged, or loose, and it's not leaking. My gearbox is probably mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or loose, and it's not leaking. My pitman.
You said gearbox is right. You don't have to say double steer gearbox, right?
No, you could just say gearbox. They know what it is. My pitman arm. That was good. Pitman arm. Go ahead. Tie rod. Drag link.
The word on arm. Probably not secured, not cracked, damages, or loose. Bushings are present, so no worn.
And no worn sockets.
No worn sockets.
Pitman arm. Drag link. Tie rod down here. Here's all your bushings. Right, on both sides you have that. All right? Come on. My castle nut with my cotter pin. Castle nut with my cotter pin. It's probably mounted and secured. Now crack damage is loose and the pin is in place. Mr. Examiner, my spring mounts, front and rear, probably mounted and secured. Now crack damage is loose. My springs are probably mounted and secured. Now crack damage is loose and there's no signs of scissoring. My U-bolts with the nuts, probably mounted and secured. Now crack damage is loose and the nuts are in place. All right, my shock absorber, it's probably mounted and secured. Now crack damage is loose, no leaks. All right, we got that. You got everything here.
Socket, you didn't do the socket.
Yeah, we did that. Yep.
She did this one.
Yeah, all right. Go right over here. My single band brake chamber. Single band because it's small. And it's only half of what's in the back.
You got to say single band?
Yes, sir. My single band brake chamber is probably mounted and secured. And cracked, damaged, or loose. You can say just brake chamber if you want. My single band brake chamber is probably mounted and secured. And cracked, damaged, or loose, and no leaks. My brake line is probably mounted in. My brake hose is probably mounted and secured. No breakages, bulges, or cuts. No leaks. Just examine if I look into my rotor. It's probably mounted and secured. Now cracked, damaged, or loose, no less than 1/4 inch. There's no oil. There's no grease, and there's no excessive, no sign of excessive heat. All right. Go into your drum. My brake drum is probably mounted and secured. No cracked, damaged, or loose. There's no oil, no grease, no excessive heat. Just examine it. My rim is probably mounted and secured. Not cracked, damaged, or loose. My rim is probably mounted and secured. Not cracked, damaged, or loose. There's no oil. There's no grease. There's no illegal welds. All right. Just examine it. The inside sidewall of my tire is probably mounted and secured. No abrasions, bulges, or cuts. It's not leaking. The outside sidewall of my tire is probably mounted and secured. No abrasions, bulges, or cuts, and no leaks. My tire is worn evenly. This tire needs to be a virgin tire. Has to be 432 tread down. My rim with my factory holes is probably mounted and secured. Not cracked, damaged, or loose, and no illegal welds. My lug nuts are all present and secure. There's no rust marks, which would indicate a loose lug nut. There's no shiny thread, which would indicate a cross thread of one of my lug nuts. My valve stem is probably mounted and secure. Not cracked, damaged, or loose. It should be a metal cap on it, Mr. Examiner. If it didn't have a metal cap, I would write it down on my DVIR. If I pull this out, I could check my hub seal. If I put my finger in there, a fluid will be between min and max. All right? All right. You can shut up. Thank you. Mr. Examiner, my marker light, four-way indicator, and signal light is probably mounted and secured. Not cracked, damaged, or loose, and it's the proper color amber. My mirror bracket is probably mounted and secured. Not cracked, damaged, or loose. My mirrors, top and bottom, are probably mounted and secured. Not cracked, damaged, or loose. There's no illegal stickers, and they're clean. Mr. Examiner, excuse me, ma'am. My door opens, and my door closes. My door seal is probably mounted and secured on both sides. Probably mounted and secured. Not worn, torn, or frayed. It's not missing. My door hinges are probably mounted and secured. Not cracked, damaged, or loose. None missing. Mr. Examiner, my door is not sagging.
Steps.
My DEF tank with my cap is probably mounted and secured. Not cracked, damaged, or loose. The cap is tight. My steps, both steps are probably mounted and secured.
So you gotta say it's supposed to be 1/8?
Well, 1/8, good call, man. Yes, sir. It should be 1/8 of a tank, no less than 1/8 of a tank, enough for the load that's in the trailer. My steps, top and bottom, are probably mounted and secured. Not cracked, damaged, or loose, free of debris. My tank straps, probably mounted and secured. Not cracked, damaged, or loose. The rubber on my tank straps is probably mounted and secured. Not worn, torn, or frayed, and not missing. Excuse me, lady.
Just a question.
Yes.
For the rubbers, Miss Shelley teaches us no abrasion of bulges
I keep telling Miss Shelley, where do you fill it up with the fluid? That fluid is. It's only
So
fluid.
ABS has one.
We've been telling Miss Shelley that a while, but we all love Miss Shelley.
It's only for hoses.
Right, exactly.
No hose.
ABC
Exactly.
for the hose.
100%.
I think that's in the book also,
Cap.
It might be.
FleetForce.
Might be. That's why if you just watch the video, you're fine.
It's in the FleetForce.
Mr. Examiner, my cap for my fuel tank is probably mounted and secured. And cracked, damaged, or loose, and not leaking. If I take the cap off, there will be a chain and a rubber gasket. All right? DEF. Mr. Examiner, my drive shaft is probably mounted and secured. Now cracked, damaged, or loose. There's no signs of twisting,
For you,
and it's free of debris. My U-joints are probably mounted and secured. Now cracked, damaged, or loose, and probably greased. That's D. E. Your exhaust. Mr. Examiner, my exhaust from the manifold to the tip of my exhaust is probably mounted and secured. Not cracked, damaged, or loose. There's no soot marks, and all my clamps are tight. All right? That's E. Go right to F. Frame. My frame is probably mounted and secured. Not cracked, damaged, or loose, and there's no illegal welds. My cross members are probably mounted and secured. Not cracked, damaged, or loose, and not missing. My
Torque boss.
torque arm Torsion bar, I'm sorry, torsion bar.
Torsion bar.
My torsion bar, it's back here. My torsion bar is probably mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or loose. And no worn bushings. All right?
What about shaft? Something shaft.
Huh?
Yeah, we did shot.
What?
Did shot.
Shaft?
Yeah.
All right. So now you got DEF, finish the drive shaft, exhaust, and frame. You're good to go. My catwalk is probably mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or loose. And free of debris.
We can say catwalk at steps, right?
Yeah, you could do that. You can put it all together if you want, sure. Mr. Examiner, wait to do your steps till you get back here. Mr. Examiner, my steps, both my steps and my catwalk, probably mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or loose, free of debris. Right? Come back over here. My spring mount is probably mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or loose. My springs are probably mounted and secured, not cracked, and you only have one spring mount. Has the handbrake in the back. Just mention the one. My spring is probably mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or loose. There's no scissor. Mr. Examiner, my double band brake chamber. Going back, it's probably mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or loose, and it's not leaking. My brake lines are probably mounted and secured, not cracked, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. They're not leaking. Alright? Mr. Examiner, if I go into my brake rotor, it's probably mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or loose, no less than a quarter of an inch. There's no oil, no grease, no signs of excessive heat. My brake drum is probably mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or loose. There's no oil, there's no grease. My brake chamber?
I'm gonna send it.
Send it there.
I'm gonna send the video.
All right. My rim is probably mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or loose. No illegal welds. Remember what I said about real easy, guys. You can come back here and do that because now, as soon as we're done here, we're going to mention. We could actually mention it right now if you want. My airbag is probably mounted and secured. No abrasions, bulges, or cuts, no leaks. My airbag mounts, put it together. It's probably mounted and secured, not cracked, damaged, or loose. Mr. Examiner, the inside sidewall of both my tires, probably mounted and secured. No abrasions, bulges, or cuts, no leaks. The outside sidewall of both my tires, probably mounted and secured. No abrasions, bulges, or cuts, no leaks. The bud spacing in between my tires, Mr. Examiner, is probably mounted and secured. Not cracked, damaged, or loose. There's no daylight in between my rims, and it's free of debris. My rim, with my factory holes, is probably mounted and secured.
So what
Not
about
cracked.
mention the 232?
232. There you go. See that? I forgot that. Mr. Examiner, these need to be at least 232 tread depth.
232 or 432?
232. Right. And these can be recaps. Good call, man. Mr. Examiner, my rim with my factory holes is probably mounted and secured, no cracked, damaged, or loose, with no illegal weld. My valve stem. My valve stem is probably mounted and secured, no cracked, damaged, or loose, and not leaking. Should have a metal cap. If it didn't have a metal cap, I would note it on my DVIR. Mr. Examiner, my lug nuts are all present, probably mounted and secured, no cracked, damaged, or loose. There's no rust trails, which would indicate a loose lug nut, and there's no shiny thread, which would indicate a cross thread of one of my lug nuts. My axle sealer is probably mounted and secured, no cracked, damaged, or loose, and it's not leaking. Right? You're not checking anything here. The only one you're checking is your front. That's it. My mud flap hanger is probably mounted and secured, no cracked, damaged, or loose. Should have 100% DOT tape. My mud flap is probably mounted and secured.
She said DOT. I already know that didn't have DOT. Is that okay? Because we didn't mention DOT for that.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to write you for it, but you're absolutely right. So I should have mentioned these right here, your reflectors. Some trucks have tape up on the corner.
Okay.
So whatever you see with DOT tape is probably mounted and secured. Crack damage loose, it's clean.
Clean, proper color, red or silver.
And in the back of your truck, it should be white.
White, red, white.
My mud flap is probably mounted and secured, not worn, torn, or frayed, and it's at the right height from the ground. All right? Mr. Examiner, my three lights back there, two red ones, probably mounted, two red ones, which are my brake lights, turn signal, four-way indicator, and runner. Probably mounted and secured, the crack damage is loose. Or reverse light. It's probably mounted and secured, the crack damage is loose.